Today, we're talking about inner child work and the importance of inner child work, especially when it comes to dads, fathers, whatever, name that you want to associate to yourself. So basically, there is a lot of recent talk, especially on the internet, about the importance of inner child work for men, right? So, for those of you who are not familiar with inner child work, basically, uh, when we were younger, there are specific events that occur to us that still kind of, you would say, haunt us to this day, right? So whether that be, when you were a child, you were only praised for doing good, like achieving, right? So now you're like living your adult life just like seeking validation because when you were younger, that was the only time you were even acknowledged. Things like that. That's a key example of an inner child wound, right? Other inner child wounds are, maybe when you were younger, um, you were told that you weren't good enough in basketball, right? Like somebody who really like meant something to you said, "Oh, you're not that good of a basketball player." So that one thing that happened when you were like 9 or 10, for example, literally still haunts you to this day and your late 20s, 30s, early 40s, right? So, and what we want to look at is how facing that inner child, healing that inner child, how that has a positive impact on your role as dad when it comes to the relationship you have with your children. Right now on the internet there is a good amount, and I'm happy about this, right? There's a good amount of inner child work, things popping up, but it's more so for men in relationships with women, like how the inner child work is affecting a man that's, wanting to be in a romantic relationship. And like all things in life, you can pull from it and find inspiration, and you can pull from it, because essentially, when with inner child wounds, a lot of men are doing the most for validation from women. A lot of men feel like they can't even be alone by themselves because they just are yearning for like this love, right? So if we flip that around and we talk about the importance of this type of work for fathers, it gets really deep because, for example, I tell you one thing that inner child work has done for me. It has made me realize that I 1000%, I don't want to say was, because I'm sure I still do this from time to time, but I'm a lot better with it now since I've been getting into this work. But I'm sure, like 1000%, things that have been said to me, experience that I have had in the past as a child, definitely has impacted how I'm parenting today, right? 1000%. And just being aware of that is the first key to unlocking this matrix, right? Just being able to sit here and be like, yeah, 1000%, this happened when I was like a kid, and I can for sure see how my like it's impacting my parenting. Like that's the first key to all of this, right? So now that we have that, it's about, well, how do we, first of all, realize these things, right? How do we talk about these things? And for me, I'm always going to tell you to write it down, right? Because it brings you so much emotional clarity. So, you know, so much emotional clarity. So, in my personal life, an inner child wound that I was struggling with for a while, and I'll tell you how it affects my parenting, is this idea of like, I need to be perfect, right? Because when I was younger, that's how I felt, right? Like, some people, they can bring in like C's and B's, and that would be great, right? That would be, you tried your hardest, and like let's see if we can go higher than that. But I'm very proud of you. For me, and when I was a child, it felt like I really only got that praise if I was like bringing home an honor roll report card, or if I brought home an essay, that got like a bunch of gold stars on it. So, boom. Now in my adult life, my teenage and adult life, this is what I'm used to, right? I need to feel validated. It needs to be perfect, right? Whatever that word means, whatever that is in reality, it needs to be perfect. So fast forward to my kid. Now I have two children, right? My son is dealing with this, has dealt with this the most, just because of the age difference. He's 12, my daughter is 2 years old. So picture my 12-year-old coming up now, when he was like 5, 6, starting kindergarten and stuff. So many times I would like let my perfectionism leak onto him. Um, Not even just the work he brought home, how he performed on activities, but also just the pressure I put on myself as a dad, right? That's an inner child wound, right? The pressure I put on myself. I got to do this perfect. And when you think about that, you don't embrace imperfection. And in fatherhood, that's like, I think, like top 5 killers is when dads don't embrace imperfection, right? And when you feel like you got to do this, you got to do that, because if not, you're a bad dad. And that comes from an inner child wound. To feel like you're a bad dad because you didn't do something, or you might have had a bad day at the office, um, office meaning parenting, that's an inner child wound, right? So we now need to sit and ask ourselves, like, okay, how do I solve this? So I spoke about writing it down, and an inner child wound journal prompt that I use all the time, and I would really, really implore you all to use this, is, I'll give you a couple, but a big one for me is, uh, what did I need to hear as a child that I didn't hear? Right? What did I need to hear? And I mean, for me, I needed to hear, hey, that's okay. You tried your hardest. I needed to hear that. Think about that. Think about the things you needed to hear as a child that you didn't hear. And more than likely, your kid needs to hear that very same thing. And because we're still battling from the wounds of childhood, we don't even give that to our children, or we don't think to give that to our children. And if we do, we are really giving it to them when it's already at like max point, right? When it's like, oh man, he's crying, she's crying, you could tell they're so frustrated. And now I'm playing damage control, right? Now I'm like, hey man, it's okay, like you'll be all right, like we'll work on it next time. But it's because they're already in a fragile state. um Once I started doing this inner child work, I realized, like, actually, like, I can say that to my kids every day if I wanted to, right? I can say that to my kids all the time. It doesn't need to be a specific uh, traumatic experience that's making me tell them, hey, you're okay. That was a good job. Like, yeah, I'm proud of you. These are things that we need to be saying on the daily. And I think once we heal our inner child wounds, it's subconsciously just, it's going to be in our nature to say these things. So, like my son, for example, he plays basketball, and he is like, I would say, like an elite talent for his age group. Plays the game really well. But of course, he's not going to have 20-point halves every game, right? He's going to have bad games. And I make sure after every game that he would perceive as bad, um, I'm like, hey man, I'm proud of you. Like, that's the first thing. That's the very first thing. We can talk about the X's and O's, and we can talk about, how I felt you didn't uh, box out enough. I felt like you didn't rebound well enough. I felt like, you weren't as alert on defense as like, whatever. We can get to that. But before we get to that, I'm gonna tell you, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for like stepping out there. I'm proud of you for giving it a go, because a lot of kids don't give it a go, especially with the amount of pressure that he has on him on said specific team. right? He goes out there every day and gives it a go, and I'm proud of him for that. I'm proud of the effort, and we got to tell our kids that, because we need that. We can't just tell them we're proud of them when they do what they perceive as well, um, and or what we perceive as well or good, you know. So we got to tell our kids, man, like, hey, I'm proud of you, despite the perceived outcome, right? Oh yeah, I played terrible. Well, at least you went out there, you know, and I'm proud of you for that. Yeah. So, um, I would say, to wrap this video up, really, really like look into this inner child work, and really ask yourself, what did you need as a kid when you were growing up that you didn't get, right? What did you need? You know, rather that could be emotional support. That could be like, for example, me, I needed like physical affection from my parents. I didn't get that, right? I needed like hugs from mom and dad, right? I didn't get that. My mom gave me a lot of emotional support, and that was great. Um, but I needed like just like a hug, or, you know, arm around my shoulder. I never got that. So the good way that that's impacting me is I realized that I needed that. So because I realized that, now I can like just be like subconsciously, like it comes second nature to me to give my son and my daughter hugs, right? And my son is not scared to give me a hug, right? He's like this tall 5'8" kid going into 7th grade, and to this day he will look at me and he will put both arms around me. I know that is because of the work that I've done on my own inner child, to be able to provide for him what I didn't get, as far as like physical touch, right? So, yeah, I think this is a big thing. It gets way deeper. This is just like a 10-12 minute YouTube video. So what I would say is, after watching this, write down, what did you need as a kid that you didn't get, and how can you give that to your child? And remember, we're talking about like emotional things now, right? Not nothing material. What emotional substance? What did you need as a child that you didn't get, and how can you give that to your kid? And once you do that, just go on a rabbit hole hunt on inner child and how it can be beneficial to you as a dad. Um, yeah, man, I'm sending light to every single one of you, and I hope this was helpful. And I do believe so many will find value in it, and I'm just happy to be the vessel to deliver it to you. So, sending light, 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 never darkness. Catch you later.